In the early 19th century, the vast and unforgiving Sahara Desert bore witness to an extraordinary tale of survival and human resilience. This is the true story of Captain James Riley and his crew, whose harrowing journey after a shipwreck led them through unimaginable hardships. In August 1815, the American merchant brig Commerce, commanded by Captain James Riley, set sail from Gibraltar with a small but experienced crew. Their destination was the Cape Verde Islands, where they planned to trade goods and return home with valuable cargo. The men aboard were seasoned sailors, accustomed to rough waters and long voyages. Spirits were high, and the weather seemed favorable. Little did they know that fate had something else in store for them. As the ship made its way along the treacherous northwest coast of Africa, a dense fog descended without warning, blinding them to the hidden perils beneath the waves. Captain Riley ordered his men to proceed cautiously, but nature was merciless. Without warning, the Commerce struck a submerged reef off of the coast of Cape Boador, a notorious graveyard for ships. The impact sent a violent shudder through the vessel, splintering the hull and allowing seawater to flood in. Within minutes, the ship was beyond saving. The crew scrambled to salvage whatever provisions they could, throwing barrels of water, dried food, and navigational tools into their lifeboat. The wind howled, and the waves clawed at the doomed brig as it tilted sharply, swallowing the last remnants of their ship beneath the sea. They had no choice but to abandon it. For days, the men drifted aimlessly in their fragile longboat. The sun beat down upon them, turning the wooden craft into an oven. Water supplies dwindled rapidly, forcing them to ration small sips between them. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, and thirst tormented their throats. At night, the temperatures plummeted, and the men shivered in their tattered clothes. With every sunrise, hope dwindled further. Then, on the horizon, they spotted land, a long stretch of barren coastline. Relief washed over them as they rowed towards the shore, their bodies weak but driven by the promise of solid ground. However, the land they reached was no paradise. It was the edge of the Sahara Desert, one of the most hostile environments on Earth. As they stumbled onto the sand, their knees buckled beneath them. Their relief was short-lived. A group of Berber nomads approached on horseback, their faces obscured by flowing robes and turbans. The sailors, unable to communicate with the nomads, gestured for water and help. Instead, the strangers saw their weakened state and saw an opportunity. Within moments, the sailors were surrounded. Their possessions, meager as they were stripped from them. Bound with rough ropes, they were led into the endless desert. Captain Riley and his crew had not just been stranded, they had been captured. Their fate was now at the mercy of the desert and those who ruled it. The Sahara became their prison. The nomads forced the sailors to march endlessly beneath the scorching sun. Their captors spoke little, offering no explanation for their fate. Food was scarce, and water even scarcer. They were given barely enough sustenance to keep them alive. Sandstorms occasionally tore across the landscape, whipping against their faces like tiny daggers. Their feet blistered and bled as they trudged barefoot across the scorching dunes. Some of the men, too weak to continue, collapsed along the way. Their captors showed no mercy. Those who could not keep pace were left behind to be claimed by the desert. Captain Riley, determined to keep his crew alive, pleaded with their captors for mercy, but their words fell on deaf ears. After weeks of brutal travel, they were taken to a nomadic encampment deep in the desert, where they were separated and sold as slaves to different tribes. The days blurred together in a haze of suffering. They were forced to carry heavy loads, tend to livestock, and endure beatings for the slightest perceived misstep. The once proud sailors had become shadows of their former selves. Captain Riley, a natural leader, never lost hope. He carefully observed the ways of his captors, trying to understand their language and customs. In time, he learned of a city far to the north, Sahara, modern-day Sahara, Morocco, where foreign traders could be found. He realized that if he could convince his captors to take him there, he might find someone willing to pay for their ransom. With desperate persistence, Riley managed to persuade one of his captors, a man named Sidi Hamet, that he was a valuable man with powerful connections. He promised that if taken to Sahara, he could arrange for payment. Skeptical but tempted by the promise of wealth, Sidi Hamet agreed. Riley and a few of his remaining crew members were forced to undertake yet another brutal journey, this time northward, toward the distant hope of salvation. The trek was no less punishing than before. At night, they huddled together for warmth under the cold desert sky, while by day they struggled through endless dunes under the merciless sun. Their lips cracked, their skin burned, and their bodies wasted away from starvation. But through sheer willpower, they pressed on. After weeks of agonizing travel, they reached Sahara, where Riley encountered William Wilshire, a British consul known for his compassion towards shipwrecked sailors. Moved by their desperate condition, Wilshire agreed to pay their ransom. It was a moment of salvation. Their suffering had not been in vain. One by one, Riley and his surviving men were released. They were clothed, fed, and given medical treatment. Their bodies bore the scars of their ordeal, but they were finally free. Months later, Riley and his surviving crew members returned to America. Their harrowing tale spread quickly, captivating audience with its unimaginable hardships and the resilience of the human spirit. Riley later chronicled their ordeal in his memoir, Sufferings in Africa, which became one of the earliest and most powerful accounts of survival in the desert. His story not only provided a harrowing glimpse into the dangers of the Sahara, but also shed light on the complexities of slavery in North Africa, challenging Western perceptions at the time. Riley's experiences influenced abolitionist thought and inspired generations of adventurers and storytellers. The story of Captain James Riley and his men stands as a testament to the unbreakable nature of the human spirit. Against impossible odds, through the cruelty of both nature and man, they survived. Their tale remains an enduring reminder of courage, leadership, and the will to live, even in the face of certain death. In the vast and merciless Sahara, where so many had perished before them, they endured and lived to tell their tale.